Hello everyone, I'm Tony from Architect Fitness, and in this video, we're going to be talking about why I think you should take my advice on exercise and nutrition. The internet is an excellent resource. There's almost endless amounts of information on just about any topic you can think of, and health and fitness is absolutely no different. But you might not be equipped with the tools to discern the good information from the bad. So who do you trust? In this video, I'm going to be making my case for why you should listen to me. Before we get started, I'm going to say that I'm not the only expert on fitness and nutrition. I'm probably not even the best expert on fitness and nutrition. However, I do think I bring a unique set of skills and perspectives to the discussion. In this video, we're going to be talking about my credentials, my experience, and how I got to where I'm at right now in the health and fitness world. But before we do that, I want to talk about why people espouse information that's not correct. When it comes to selling diets or workout plans that aren't really that effective, I think you can lump people into two basic categories. The first is people who are well-meaning but are just misinformed. And let me explain to you how this happens. I know someone who recently lost about 25 pounds simply by cutting soda out of their diet. Actually, what they did was they went from drinking regular soda to diet soda. Now, this person was absolutely convinced that soda is what's responsible for America's obesity epidemic, in particular, the sugar that's found in soda. And there was absolutely no convincing this person otherwise because they had firsthand experience. They had seen it with their own eyes. Unfortunately, this person was lacking in the basic scientific knowledge to understand the mechanisms at play that are creating this change in their own body. They were drinking 2 sodas a day. Now, the average 16-ounce can of soda has about 140 calories in it. So 2 sodas a day, 7 days a week, that's nearly 2,000 calories per week just from soda. When they switched to the 0-calorie diet soda option, they were removing 2,000 calories from their diet per week. Most people need anywhere from 1,600 to 3,000 calories per day to maintain their body weight. So essentially, this was like removing a whole day's worth of eating from their weekly calorie intake. This is what produced the weight loss. They could have reduced those calories from another food source in their diet and seen similar results. Here's why that becomes dangerous. This person is now 100% convinced that soda is making us all fat, and that is the advice that they give all of their friends. And they're extremely well-meaning in doing so. However, if you are overweight and you only drink maybe 1 soda a week or not even, that advice doesn't do you any good. Obviously, the source of your body fat is coming from somewhere else. The other downside is there are companies that prey on these people's enthusiasm. Companies like Herbalife, Isogenics, Beachbody. They take someone's good intentions and they turn those people into salesmen for their own product. This is the crux of almost every pyramid scheme type business. And it's often why you have so many amateurs masquerading as experts. Now, I don't want to discredit anybody's personal experience. I think personal experience is step one to making any type of progress or coming to any kind of conclusion, no matter what the topic is. But that cannot be the only thing that makes you an expert on a subject. The second group of people who are selling you on misinformation are unfortunately people who are doing it consciously. And these are people that sell products that they've never used or are using illicit drugs to produce their physique like steroids and then telling you that it was their particular brand of supplements that are over the counter or maybe their particular workout plan that they're selling. I would say this is a much smaller group in the fitness and nutrition world, but it definitely is still somewhat prevalent. I don't want to spend too much time talking about those people. What this video is really about is why I think you should take my advice when I am a single voice in a sea of noise. Back in the late 90s when I was a young boy, my older brother was challenged to an arm wrestling match at school. Unfortunately, he lost. To keep this epic tragedy from happening again, my father signed him up at a local gym, and I did karate at the karate studio next door. When I turned 12 years old, my father told me that I was too old to be doing karate, so he switched me over to the gym with my brother. I still remember my very first workout. The trainer had me doing a leg workout, and we started with the leg press. I did a single set with the sled only, no added weight, and I told him it was easy. So he added some weight. Again, it's easy. We repeated this process until I completed about 350 pounds for a few sets of 8. Recognizing that I had a propensity for strength, the trainer set me on a path to start competing in powerlifting. I competed in my first competition a year later at the age of 13, weighing about 155 pounds. At the time, I could squat 350 pounds, bench press 200 pounds, and deadlift 375 pounds. Yes, at 13 years old. I continued to train in powerlifting throughout high school, but I also took an interest in other sports, primarily track and field, where I competed in the 100, 200, 400, and also the high jump. Although my running technique and certainly my jumping technique left a lot to be desired, I was fairly competitive because of the powerlifting training. Maximal strength is the foundation for all other movement, and heavy lifting lends itself very well to explosive activities like running fast and jumping. After high school, I gained the classic freshman 15 during my first semester of college, and that's when I became more interested in aesthetic-based training. My number one goal became to be as lean and ripped as possible. Growing up, I was always a little bit overweight as a kid. My nickname was the Pillsbury Doughboy, and so this was a big challenge for me and something totally new. I dieted down to about 10% body fat. I never got it officially tested, but I did have visible abs. I apologize for the crappy cell phone photo. We didn't have as many megapixels back then as we do now. Although I really enjoyed being lean, it was a lot of work for me to maintain that, as I'm not a naturally lean person, and many of the people in my family are actually overweight, so my interests once again changed. At the time, I was working at the front desk of my local gym as a way to pay my way through college. One night, the head trainer and the owner of the gym had a massive blowout argument, and the trainer stormed out. The owner then asked me if I wanted to be the head trainer. Although I wasn't certified, they felt that I knew what I was doing and I had demonstrated the ability to train intelligently in the gym. So they agreed to pay for all the necessary certifications, and that's when my career as a coach or personal trainer began. Not too long after that, the owner of the gym wanted to open several other locations, and they offered me the ability to travel around and help them do that. The first assignment was in York, Pennsylvania, which is home to York Barbell. If you're not familiar with York Barbell, they're one of the oldest gyms in the country and one of the original equipment manufacturers that's still around today. It was founded and owned by Bob Hoffman, who is one of the premier equipment designers. He also pushed the envelope as far as supplements, and he personally paved the way for many athletes to compete internationally in weightlifting and powerlifting over the years. During that time, I had a chance to train at the Weightlifting Hall of Fame at York Barbell, and that's when my passion for Olympic-style weightlifting started. At the time, I was also doing a lot of my workouts at a local Gold's Gym, where I befriended two of the personal trainers there who were planning on opening a CrossFit gym. I saw these two guys doing overhead squats one day, and I asked them if they were weightlifters, and they told me that they were CrossFitters, and I'd actually never heard of this before. So they invited me down to do a CrossFit workout the next day. I still remember this workout as well. It was a 275-pound deadlift for 10 reps, 10 pull-ups, and 10 burpees 3 times through as fast as you can. At the time, CrossFit did not include quite as much strength training as they do now, particularly with barbells. And the two guys I was doing the workout with could not complete the 275-pound set of deadlifts for 10 in a single set. They had to break it up into multiple sets of 3 or 4 reps at a time. Although I wasn't really in good shape for this type of training, the fact that I could do easily 275-pound deadlifts for 10 kept me really competitive as far as the score of that workout. The two guys I worked out with were really impressed by my time, but I knew right away that this type of training wasn't exactly for me, and I actually remember having a headache the rest of the day. Those two guys went on to found CrossFit York, which was one of the first 100 CrossFits in the country, and as far as I know, it's still up and operating today. About a year later, when I'd moved back to New Hampshire, I was training at home, and a lot of my workouts came directly from CrossFit HQ, so I do have a good amount of experience with CrossFit type training. I've been pretty vocal about my criticism of CrossFit over the years, and a lot of times people who are proponents of CrossFit will always say, well, that's because you've never done it or you can't do it. And in reality, I was participating in this stuff long before CrossFit was even a blip on their radar. After moving back to New Hampshire, I jumped around from job to job a little bit until a friend approached me about opening a new gym in Concord, New Hampshire. Right at this time, CrossFit and group fitness training like boot camps were becoming all of the rage, and that's the type of gym he wanted to set up. At the time, this seemed like a perfect fit, and we went to work. Just like the results that I got with my CrossFit type training, the results that we got with our clients at the boot camp were fairly mixed. Typically what would happen is someone who is brand new to training or coming back after a very long layoff would see awesome progress in the first 3 to 6 months and then just completely plateau. At the time, I knew that there was probably a better way to do it, so I pushed really hard to start incorporating more traditional strength training. At that facility, we launched a separate second program that was focused more on traditional strength training, although it was still done in a group setting. The results that we were getting were better than the results that we were getting in boot camps. However, I still felt like there was a limitation due to the fact that we're doing a group workout, and also people were restricted to the class times. Unfortunately, the owner of that gym didn't really want to expand, and I felt like my options were somewhat limited. And at this time, I was also getting a little bit burnt out on being a coach. So with no other plan in mind, I actually just quit my job, kind of cold turkey, if you will. I took a few months off and I really thought deep about what I wanted to do. It was nice to have a bit of a break from coaching, but I still felt like that was my passion, and I still felt like I had work left to do in this field. And that's when I decided to open Architect Fitness. When I first opened the gym, people thought I was absolutely crazy for not offering group fitness. But when you look at it, there are tons of gyms in our area that offer group fitness training, and I really wanted something that made us stand out. And that's how I came up with the format for Architect. If you're not familiar with how Architect works, every client gets their own individual training program. We have 24-hour access so they can come in whenever they want. And we have big blocks of time throughout the day that coaches are on to help the clients with their workouts. When Architect opened, this was the first time I had complete creative control over how everything was going to be done, from the equipment we had in the facility to how the programs were going to be done and the things that we taught our clients. I knew that if clients came in and did the work and they didn't get the results that they wanted, that was on me. And that's how I wanted it. I wanted that responsibility because then I could share in the client's success, or if something wasn't working right, I had the ability to make a change to get them better results. When Architect first opened, of course, we served clients with all different types of needs, but I took this opportunity to really focus in on one of my newer passions, which was Olympic-style weightlifting. I poured a ton of time, energy, and resources into this sport, and we had excellent results. The weightlifting team had produced its first national medalist in 2014 with Gunnar Matson, who won the bronze medal at Collegiate Nationals in Albuquerque. 2 years later, our athlete Mackenzie Roy won the bronze medal at Senior Nationals. From there, we've also had a second Collegiate Nationals medalist in Tyler Shade in the men's 96 category. We've also had several New England record holders, New England champions, and last year, Jim Susi competed at the Masters World Championships in Montreal, which was our first world team competitor. In the last few years, we've also launched a powerlifting team. We have powerlifters who hold New Hampshire records, several athletes who have qualified for nationals, and athletes who have competed at nationals in powerlifting. And I don't want to make light of all the other client success stories we have, from clients losing weight, reducing the medications they have to be on, just improving their general quality of life, helping people compete in their first 5K, compete in their first marathon, secure college scholarships, play at the Division I level in certain sports. We've had so many success stories over the years, it's really hard to remember them all. All right, so at this point you might be thinking, that's great, Tony, but what about you? If you're such a great coach, how come you're not big and strong and lean? And that's a great question. I would say over the years, I've had a lot of the physical tools necessary to succeed in a couple of different sports. I'm pretty fast, I'm pretty strong, and I'm pretty flexible. However, I will say when you're given a lot of these tools, sometimes you take them for granted. And it wasn't until I was older and not able to take advantage of some of these gifts that I really started to realize how special some of those gifts were. I've also faced some incredible health challenges over the years, some of which are completely out of my control. In 2012, I was diagnosed with a heart condition called WPW. Although I was born with this condition and I was asymptomatic, the doctors recommended that I did have a procedure called an ablation to correct this arrhythmia, because technically speaking, it could be fatal down the road. I had the procedure done, and at the time, everything seemed to be according to plan. However, I did not know that my AV node was damaged during the procedure. Over the next few years, the scar tissue in my heart continued to degrade, and my heart started to beat slower and slower. In the first year we were open at Architect Fitness, I was gaining weight rapidly, I felt exhausted all of the time, and eventually I started to have bouts where I thought I was going to lose consciousness. When your heart beats too slow, this is called bradycardia. Normal heart rhythm is somewhere between 60 and 90 beats per minute. My resting heart rate was about 30, so half the normal rate. Unfortunately, the only fix for this problem is an implanted medical device known as a pacemaker, or a pacer for short. In 2016, I had the pacemaker implanted and I immediately started to feel better. I had more energy, I was able to train more regularly, and of course my resting metabolism came back, so I started to lose weight fairly quickly. Over the next 8 months, I lost over 40 pounds and I was feeling great. Then I started to notice I was being short of breath during normal activities, I was tired all the time again, and I was waking up several times a night to use the bathroom. Something wasn't right for the amount of training I was doing, how closely I was paying attention to my nutrition, and the fact that my heart was beating at a regular rate. So I went to the doctor and they did some tests and they found that my heart function had decreased by almost half. So my heart was beating fast enough, but with each beat it wasn't pumping enough blood. This is sometimes referred to as heart failure. This is something that shouldn't be happening to somebody that's only in their 30s and is in pretty good shape. Over the next year or so, I went to many different specialists. I had dozens of tests done. Just about every test you can think of was done to my heart with the exception of a biopsy. Thank goodness I never had to have that done. And the doctors came to the conclusion that I either had a rare autoimmune disorder called sarcoidosis, or they had put the wrong type of pacemaker in me. After doing a lot of my own research, spending innumerable hours reading scientific papers, reaching out to several other experts in the field, I came to the conclusion that it was probably the latter. I think I had the wrong type of pacemaker. So in 2018, I had a new type of pacemaker put in me called a biventricular pacer. Once again, after this new pacer was put in, I started to feel good again. I was able to live my life in a more normal way, having normal levels of energy. And then one day I was loading a couch into the back of my pickup truck, and after I put it in there, I didn't feel quite right. A few hours later, I got a call from my doctor's office, and they told me that my home monitor, which communicates with my pacer, had pinged them and said something's not right. So I went to the doctor and we found that I had actually fractured the leads of my pacemaker. The pacemaker sits right here in your chest and the wires run along your collarbone and go down into your heart. I had actually crushed those wires with my pec muscles. Makes for good bragging rights, but unfortunately I had to undergo my most dangerous procedure yet, and I was also left with some very severe exercise restrictions. I would go over with you all the things that I can't do, but it's much easier to just explain the things that I can do. I can run, I can do some sit-ups, I can do some light arm work like dumbbell curls, and I can also do some unloaded lower body training like split squats or bodyweight squats. And that's pretty much it. Unfortunately, unless the technology drastically changes in pacemakers, I will have these restrictions for the rest of my life. Even though I've spent most recently my time focusing on coaching, this was officially the end of my weightlifting career. As someone that spent almost their entire adult life becoming a master of this field, this was a huge blow to me. But I try to look at it as a learning opportunity because now I have a better appreciation for my clients who do have their own medical restrictions. And that brings me to my next point, which is, although I might not be the smartest, the strongest, or the most experienced, I do think I have an interesting blend of practical experience, empathy, and a special perspective on health and fitness that many people don't have. You could have a 25-year-old trainer with ripped abs that understands fully exercise science, but if that person's never been severely overweight or struggled with their weight in any way, they're gonna have a hard time empathizing with their overweight clients. I've had the privilege of working with some excellent athletes in my time, and while every client presents their own particular challenges, The better the athlete, typically the easier it is to work with them just because they're so physically gifted. It's my clients that have never been athletes or have struggled with weight their entire lives that are the most challenging but also the most rewarding to work with. If you haven't been through the physical and mental strain of being overweight, you can't really understand what it's like. While I don't want to take anything away from people who may have lost 10 or 15 pounds and been in great shape, in reality, you were only maybe 8 to 16 weeks away from that goal. At Architect, we have clients that might be 300, 400, 500 or more days away from getting to the end. They have to be so consistent day in and day out, and for so long, it's an incredibly difficult task. And I know firsthand exactly what that's like. I've been at that point where I was out of breath just from bending over to tie my shoes. I've been to that point where I wasn't sure if I was going to need the seatbelt extension on an airplane. I've been to the point where I've been 10% body fat and I've been 100 pounds overweight. Right now, I've comfortably settled somewhere in between those two things, and personally, I think I'm trending towards the most healthy me yet at 34 years old with an implanted medical device. There's not a day that goes by that I wish I could just go into the gym and load on a heavy bench press or heavy deadlift and just go for it and have fun. Those days, unfortunately, are long behind me, but I still feel like I have work to do. There's still so much misinformation out there. There's so many people who are lost with their training, lost with their nutrition. They have the motivation, they have the ambition, they just don't know which way to turn. I won't feel like my work is complete until I can help more people like that. And the last thing I want to leave you with is don't ever give up on your goals and realize that this is a lifetime, long-term process. You might not ever actually get to your final goal, but if you enjoy the process and fall in love with the journey, it won't matter. So hopefully I've laid out my case that I have a great blend of personal experience, practical application, and know-how. If not, leave me a comment, tell me how stupid you think I am. But otherwise, I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and we'll see everyone in the next video.